going to begin today with a viewer letter. I usually don't do this, but I got this letter and I think it's very important that I read it to you to put things into perspective about COVID. Because COVID is not only scaring the whatever out of many millions of Americans, but it is influencing politics. If there were no COVID epidemic, Donald Trump would be leading in all the polls and probably skate into re-election. No doubt about that. So COVID is shaping all of our lives in a way that is dubious, to say the least. So Sharon writes on the message board at BillO'Reilly.com, and we urge everybody to go there and express your opinion. She writes, the USA's COVID death rate is 0.004. We have locked down the country, destroyed our freedoms, destroyed businesses, ruined the education of millions of kids, closed our schools, destroyed people's lives, all because of 0.004% of U.S. citizens dying from COVID. Wake up, America, you've been had. It's not quite that easy, Sharon, all right? So you know by watching me that I'm a fair man, and I don't panic, ever. But I don't want to get COVID because if I do get it, I could spread it to people who I love. And that's simple. Not because I fear it, not because I think I'm going to die or anything like that. The death rate, as you point out accurately, is very low in America. But there are 3.5 million of us who are diagnosed with the disease, and probably many millions more that don't even know they had it. So this contagion is vicious. It's not something that we can just wave the wand. And we're all waiting for a vaccine, which I believe will come. But I have to tell you honestly that in the beginning of this pandemic, and I was one of the first, as you all know, to say, watch it. I did that the third week in January when nobody else was paying attention to it. I got on here and I said, watch it. This thing is bad. And because I could read what was happening in China. Now, the contagion is not going to kill you if you get it, most likely. But it could put you in the hospital. And then you could infect other people because you're not going to know you have it for a few days. Just that fact, Sharon, and that's a fact, means that society has to adjust to the contagion. My advice, and I'm a simple man, don't go into clusters. Do not cluster. Wear the mask as much as you can in public. I'm not a mask fanatic. I'm on the beach, I don't have the mask. I'm in the car, I don't have the mask. I'm around people I know, I don't have the mask. I'm not Zorro, okay? But if I go out into a town, I have the mask. I don't know who's there. The reason the Sunbelt states are exploding is because they started to socialize too soon. Not open up, in my opinion. That's a misnomer. You can open up and not spread COVID if you distance and people have masks in any transaction. But if you socialize in a bar, at the beach, wherever, then you're rolling the dice. And the dice are going to come back bad for a significant number of people. And that's what's happened in Florida and Texas and Arizona and California. All warm weather places where people are outside, in my humble opinion. Again, I don't know enough about the specifics of medicine to give you any more analysis than that. But I can tell you, Sharon, that we haven't been had, all right? That's not what's going on here in America. And all of us have a responsibility to keep others safe. So in Florida, I mean, it's crazy in Florida. And remember, in Florida, in the beginning, it wasn't that bad. Florida was making fun of New York, saying, hey, we don't want you New Yorkers coming down to Florida. Remember that? Well, there are 47 hospitals in Florida that don't have any ICU beds. ICU is, when you really need help breathing. All right? So you go to the ICU and they put you on a ventilator, a respirator, wherever it may be. 47 hospitals have no beds left. That means if you have it and you need a ventilator, you could die on the spot. Texas, the number of available hospital beds in the Lone Star State, a huge state, It's fallen below 20%. So more than 80% of the hospital beds in Texas aren't being used. So this is serious business. And I think everybody knows it. In California, they're closing everything again. I don't know if that's a wise thing to do. I don't think I would do that. They're not opening schools in LA County and parts of San Diego. I don't think I would do that. And a lot of it's political. There's no doubt about that in my mind. So if you're a Democrat state like California, you're more likely to shut everything down because you don't want a quick recovery that might help President Trump. Although Newsom, to be fair, the governor of the state has been complimentary to Donald Trump. So anyway, Georgia is another one. Georgia opened up, has 120,000 cases down in the Peach State. New record of hospitalizations, 2,600, 2,600. Everybody should wear a mask in public and in any interactions, all right? If that happens, we'll tamp things down. Now, President Trump. It is desperately unfair to accuse him of botching the pandemic response. It's not fair. All right, we are a unique country. We have a lot of assets. We can travel. We are much more social than the small countries in Europe, and to compare us to them is just not right. The president's done one tremendous thing, is that he's kept the economy rolling. We could have had a stock market crash. We have not. That is huge for every American who has any kind of investment portfolio, including IRAs, retirement funds. That's huge. He gets zero credit from the corporate media for that. And it's him who's done it. So in the economic realm during COVID, he has gotten a 9 out of 10, in my opinion. On the social front, the medicine front, maybe 4 out of 10, because he doesn't know how to frame the argument. So now he's in a fight with Dr. Fauci. Now, I said on May 14th that Dr. Fauci was overstepping his bounds. Roll the tape. So Anthony Fauci, been around for decades, and he knows what he's talking about. He's an infectious disease specialist. He's a doctor, obviously. The problem with him is he's a star now, a media guy, and he talks too much about things that he doesn't know about. He speculates too much. I've been over and over and over and over this. Media loves Fauci because the doctor will sometimes contradict President Trump. So what we have now is a fissure in Trump's medical team. Fauci's on the outs. Trump says, I don't agree with him sometimes. That's not good. I don't think Trump should fire Fauci. He has de-emphasized him, and Dr. Birx is the more central physician now on the case. But Fauci is not blameless here. Fauci's going, well, mess might happen, that might happen. No. Just the facts, doctor. But this whole thing plays into the fact that the media makes it easy to bash Trump. Roll it on that.
President Donald Trump has been relentlessly dishonest about the coronavirus pandemic from even before it was actually called a pandemic. Months into the crisis, he's not getting any better. Trump played down the virus from the beginning. He did it in January, he did it in February, he did it in March, and now he's doing it in June.
Tonight, more than 4 months and 134,000 lives into this growing, not shrinking pandemic. After 2 brutal weeks of cases spiking, hospitals filling up, and now ICUs overflowing, the President of the United States still does not have a plan for turning this around.
What plan? What plan could he possibly have? Force everybody to wear masks? I guess he could do that. Make it a federal law, you have to wear a mask when you go out of your house. What else? And the other guy, the other CNN reporter, Daniel Dale, he played down the virus from the beginning. Yeah, he didn't want panic in the country. He didn't want the markets going over the cliff, you idiot. I mean, that guy is just stone cold dumb. This Dale guy. President of the United States' responsibility to keep things calm, particularly in the economic realm. You don't create panic. You say, I think we got it under control, or we do have it under, and if he's wrong, he's wrong. But you don't panic the markets. And look, CNN, They don't care about the truth. You know that. I just want to bash him. But he's making it easier for them to do it. Now, if Joe Biden's elected president in November, and he may be, he promises to raise taxes on corporations and working people. So how does this make any sense? We have massive unemployment because of COVID, yet he's going to raise taxes on corporations and companies that do the hiring so they won't have as much money to hire people back. Does that make sense? So my prediction is if Biden is elected, in 3 months, this country's economy tanks. All right? Because you can't raise taxes in the middle of massive unemployment caused by a pandemic. There's no economist on earth outside of the idiots at the New York Times that would espouse that. He's going to tank the market and every other economic indicator. And that means all of our investments are going to come crashing down. That's what you get with a Joe Biden. Hey. Next segment, virtue signaling. This is a awful thing for anyone to do. What virtue signaling is trying to make yourself look noble by smearing someone else. And it's easiest to do in the race area. Oh, he's a racist or she's a racist, but not me. I'm benevolent to all races and creeds. But they're racist. Let's burn them at the stake. Let's hurt them. Okay? Let me give you an example of virtue signaling. Go.
The President of the United States of America, who openly traffics in racism and has sent an unambiguous signal to white mass murderer terrorists.
President Trump's tweet about NASCAR driver Bubba Wallace, which wasn't just factless in its attack on NASCAR's only black driver in his top tier, it was racist, just plain and simple.
But what I happen to believe is that right now, sadly, tragically, in Israel, through Bibi Netanyahu, you have a reactionary racist who is now running that country.
And Bernie Sanders is such a noble guy. And Anderson Cooper, how noble is he? I mean, he'd be knighted if he lived in Great Britain, wouldn't he? So these people are trying to prop themselves up in their own eyes and the eyes of observers by calling Donald Trump a racist, Netanyahu a racist. I mean, it's really, really awful. Okay. Along with that virtue signaling goes silencing. All right, now tomorrow we're going to do a big take out on this New York Times editor who wrote an open letter to the publisher saying, I'm quitting because I, an ardent liberal, am being bullied in the newsroom because I'm not far left enough. That's what she did today. Now, I'm waiting a day on this because I have new information for you. All right, so if you are not an ardent far left person in the New York Times, Washington Post, NBC News, CNN, on and on, corporate media, then you are shunned. You are canceled. So when someone is canceled, that means they want to destroy them, that person. Take their job away, their good name away, whatever it may be. And there are a lot of people participating in this. So the Goya food controversy is a good example, all right? So the president, the CEO of Goya, which is a Spanish food company, he goes to the White House in support of the, let me get this straight, Hispanic Prosperity Initiative, all right? So the man is Robert Unayue, all right? And he was at the Obama White House supporting Michelle Obama's nutrition program, and he went to the Trump White House to support the Hispanic Prosperity Initiative. When he spoke, Mr. Unayue said good things about Donald Trump. All right. Immediately, the haters roll the tape.
So when most of your consumer base is that Latino community that the majority of feel accosted and harassed and discriminated by Trump. And you go and call this and say, God bless this guy and bless us for having this builder. Builder of what? Builder of a wall?
No more Goya. Boycott Goya. I will never buy another product of yours again.
All right, and then the Hollywood nitwits got on the scene. This Chrissy Teigen, who I've never seen anything this woman has ever done, tweets out, F, ashamed, don't care how good the beans taste, bye-bye. And unfortunately, Lin-Manuel, the Hamilton guy, who's tremendously talented, he tweets out, we learn to bake bread in this pandemic. We can learn to make our own adobo, A-D-O-B-O. Why don't I know that? Con pimienta. I know what con pimienta is. I don't know what adobo is. Bye. Unfortunately, Mr. Manuel participates in this hatred. This is hatred. Okay? So Ana Navarro, CNN, is a hater. She hates people, tries to hurt them. AT&T pays her salary. If AT&T had a person on its payroll that was hating the left, would they pay? Would they pay her? So the cancel culture basically boils down to hatred. One more point before we get to our guest, and we have a good guest today. In the 1930s, the Stalinists in Russia, which was the Soviet Union, and the Nazis in Germany had a cancel culture. Both of them. All right? And they sent people out to destroy perceived opponents of Hitler and Stalin, to destroy them. Sometimes murder them, sometimes beat them up, sometimes burn down their businesses, whatever it may be. That went on for years in Germany and in the Soviet Union. It was a cancel culture. There's no difference except the extremity. All right? Now we use Twitter instead of the match. All right? We use employment, firing people instead of beating them up. But it's the same cancel culture. Want to bring in Kaylee Zempel. She is the assistant editor at The Federalist, comes to us from Washington, D.C. Now, I wanted a younger American. Kaylee, I think you fit into that category of a younger American, because I'm appalled by this assault on freedom of speech, this cancel culture, this virtue signaling. Are you as disturbed as I am?
It's absolutely egregious. And I think that was most evident with the Goya example that you just mentioned. The fact that you can have a Spanish-American CEO of the nation's second largest Hispanic-owned food company be canceled over the seemingly unforgivable sin of saying something that's mildly positive about the duly elected president of the United States is just so backward that's the standard of being canceled. And this wasn't some small, random Twitter mob that came for Mr. Unanue. This was prominent politicians such as AOC and Julian Castro coming after him. The fact that someone like Unanue can be canceled by people like that for something so innocuous is just truly egregious. And something that I think that's especially worth noting in this instance is that since it's specific to Donald Trump, just looking ahead to how it's going to affect 2020, I mean, in 2016, we watched this silent majority come out in droves and elect President Donald Trump to the shock of the nation. And I think it's logical to see this correlation between cancel culture and the silent majority, that as cancel culture grows, so grows the silent majority.
There will be a backlash. I wrote a column on it.
Afraid.
Yeah, I wrote a column on it, but it hasn't appeared so far in great numbers. Our campaign, Stand Up for Your Country, has taken off. So I know what you're saying is true. I just don't know when it's going to happen. And it may be diminished by the COVID fear. But once you get into a media mob, so you have two mobs. You have the Twitter mob, all right, that goes after anybody on the right or conservatives or Republicans. You have that mob. But then you have the corporate media mob that enables all this, doesn't protest against it, pays the haters, as I pointed out, a nice wage. Go ahead and hate more. I mean, Joy Behar. Is there a bigger hater in the country on television than Joy Behar? I don't think so. Joy Behar couldn't exist on the right. Couldn't exist. Disney would never pay her. Yet they pay Miss Behar to hate every day on national television. So that's the difference, Kaylee. So we didn't have the corporate media, even during the Vietnam War days, pushing the cancel culture virtue signaling. We didn't have it. Big difference.
Well, and there's just no limiting principle. I mean, where does it end? So it's not just canceling overt, instances of racism. We've seen cancel culture come for something as innocuous as a children's animated cartoon television program. You saw them come for Paw Patrol because it glorifies police officers by having a police pup. Where is the logic in that? Where is the limiting principle in that? There just simply is none. Nothing is too small to cancel. And
you have the Hollywood nitwits on board with it. Now, I think their influence is diminishing. I do. It's more of the mob in the media, which now sets people up for cancellation. So there's a media, Media Matters, right, Kaylee?
Yes.
Okay, so what they do is they research way back 10, 20 years, trying to find something that any person they don't like might have said. And then they bring it to the fore. Now, some of that is overlapped to liberal people, like Jimmy Fallon and people like that. They have gotten it, Jimmy Kimmel, because the mob is so frenzied now, they're knocking down statues of U.S. Grant and Frederick Douglass. I mean, this is how out of control it is. Do you see any hope that this cancel culture will be struck down at any point?
Well, I mentioned the silent majority, and I think that would be something that would maybe cause a light bulb to go off, but it certainly didn't happen in 2016. I don't have a whole lot of hope that cancel culture will be easily turned around. Even as the cancelers have been canceled, that hasn't seemed to do it. Really, I think the most dangerous thing about cancel culture is that it leaves no room for growth. It leaves no room for a reform of ideas. The fact that a person can today hold a more equitable and a more just position than some prejudiced position they held in the past, and that an entity such as Media Matters or an individual in cancel culture can come for them and dig up something that they've said in the past that they no longer believe, maybe even something that they've said in their adolescence, and use it to completely destroy their livelihood or their future or their job opportunities is really just absolutely tragic. And when we exchange grace for outrage and true virtue for virtue signaling, that is a deadly prognosis for a society. And I don't know how you come back from that.
Well, I think if Donald Trump wins the election in November, there's going to be a counterattack on this whole culture. But if Joe Biden wins, the culture then will feel emboldened, and it will get even worse. Kaylee, thanks very much. We really appreciate it. And I might mention that there is a counter move to buy Goya products that has caught on to some extent to counter the boycott threats. We do not do or endorse boycotts here, but I will tell you as an American, I will not buy any Disney products as long as their management is in place at this point. I'm not going to do it. Let's bring in my pal, Adam Carolla, who is on the West Coast. He's got a brand new book out called I'm Your Emotional Support Animal, Navigating Our All Woke, No Joke Culture. All right, Carolla, where am I going wrong, man?
I agree with 99% of what you said, and I sort of was listening to the monologue and thinking of it this way, because I'm from California. I grew up in LA. I started to notice a few years ago that the government and the legislator basically broke up Los Angeles into one of two groups. There were the groups who paid their taxes and had a checking account, and they became enemy number one. They had a target on their back. And then there became everyone else who was here illegally or homeless or couldn't pay whatever stiff fines they levied against them, and they left them alone. So they essentially declared war on people that have checking accounts, and anyone who was an empty bag, they left them alone. That's why we have the homeless population. And I can distill it down to one street in Los Angeles. I used to take this to get to my studio to do my podcast every day. There's one street, it's called Forest Lawn Drive. It runs along Forest Lawn, the cemetery. On one side of the street, there are a bunch of people that are here illegally without a permit, selling flowers at cut rate prices. And by the way, undercutting the legitimate florists and businesses that are nearby. $10, you can get as many flowers as you want. That's on one side of the street. Throwing the trash on the ground, making a mess, boxes that the flowers came in, just an eyesore of a mess. On the other side of the street, there's a motorcycle cop. He sits up the driveway in the Jewish part of the cemetery. He has a radar gun because it's a long stretch of highway and people tend to speed on that stretch of highway. He then pulls over soccer moms and taxpayers and citizens who are doing nothing but taking care of their family, raising their kids, and driving 7 miles an hour faster than the posted speed limit and writing them a ticket. The illegal activity that's going on the other side of the street is neither here nor there because those people don't have checking accounts. That now is going on in full scale throughout this country.
How did it get so bad? That's a question that many, many people ask me. How did it get so bad so fast?
Because anyone who spoke up was quickly called a racist or xenophobic or bigoted or homophobic. And so all the people that wanted to just get along and not get clobbered on the Twitter sphere, on the internet, whatever it is, all the nice people sort of wanted to kind of go, I just don't want any trouble. I know it because I sat next to Dr. Drew for many, many years, and he was a good example of a good man, a family man, a taxpayer, but he didn't really want any trouble. And so he would sort of dance around, when these moments came up where people needed to speak out and say, enough is enough, this is insane. Many people were silenced, and they were silenced because they didn't want to be labeled by the mob as being prejudiced or homophobic or xenophobic, anything. They didn't want it. So they did. So all the moderate sort of in between people that knew it was wrong just sort of looked the other way and kept walking. Now, a few of us, guys like me and guys like you, we spoke our minds, and you pay the consequences for speaking your mind in the society. So a lot of good people who knew the difference between right and wrong remained silent, not because they were bad people, because they were cowards. They're scared. That's the number one quality that people possess.
There's another element to that. I agree with you that a lot of people are just frightened. And that's why I've launched this campaign, and I want you on your podcast to get involved with this campaign, Carolla. All it says is stand up for your country. That's it. No politics involved, no party, no liberal, conservative, nothing like that. And if you can't say in America, stand up for your country, if you're afraid to say that, you need to move to Costa Rica. All right? So I'm starting this campaign, and already we have millions of people engaged in it. And after your podcast, we'll have 10 million, Carolla. You got to get on board here. But the media, which should be challenging the destruction we're seeing in Chicago, Los Angeles, San Francisco, New York City, it should be saying, what the deuce is going on? How can you say defund the police when your murder rate's up 100%? How can you possibly do that? The media doesn't do any of that. Any of it. They're on the side of the Marxists, of the anarchists, of the Antifas. They say they're not, but they don't investigate. They don't do anything. And God help you if you're opposed, as you just said. That media come crushing down on you. And that is why this has accelerated, in my opinion, so quickly.
Well, there's a few components here. One is, I think the media has bought the narrative that Trump is Hitlerian and is going to destroy the country, perhaps the world. So once that's your sort of baseline, your jumping off point, then really anything you do to get rid of the next Hitler is all fair in love and war. So there's
okay.
Yeah,
right.
There's that. So morally, you can say what you want, you can lie, you can tilt the story, you can do whatever you want because it's in service of the greater good, which is getting rid of, Hitler's younger brother.
Absolutely.
So
But it was before Trump. This happened in the Obama administration. All right. Now, the Obama administration for 8 years, did the Obama administration improve race relations, Carolla? In 8 years, did it?
I'll tell you what happened, in my opinion, with the Obama administration. When we elected our first black president, and keep in mind, you and me, our whole life, that was the benchmark for this country having great race relations. I mean, that was the finish line. If we could elect a black president, imagine what a utopia in terms of race this country would be in. And for many years, that was sort of the term we use. Like, once we get to the point where we have our first black president, then we've arrived and our troubles are over from a racial standpoint. So we did. We elected him, and then we elected him for a second term. So what happened? Well, all the race hustlers out there, all the Al Sharptons and Jesse Jacksons, and then the news that foment these stories, they had to up their game because we were staring at a two-term black president, and yet they make all their money crying racism all the time. So they went into overdrive. They stepped up their game big time. You noticed it stepped up. It wasn't, you can say, well, what did Obama do to quell this, or what did he do to help race relations? He didn't do anything. Everyone else stepped up their game because they had to, because how could we live in a racist nation when we elect a black president for 2 terms?
Right. And then they had to find the villain, and the villain is the cop. They found the cop, and that's what happened. But I want to get into one more thing before I let you go.
The cop represents the man, and they don't like the patriarchy.
The cop represents the white supremacist power, okay? And they launched off that. Now, your buddy Jimmy Kimmel, and one of the reasons I like Carolla is because Carolla is a loyal guy, all right? And he's friends with Jimmy Kimmel. And Kimmel is getting killed because in the past, Kimmel did blackface skits, made fun of black basketball players, that kind of thing. Now Kimmel is a pariah because he's caught up in this unbelievable McCarthyistic wave in Hollywood where everybody's going to get cleansed. But it's ironic. And I like Kimmel. The few times I've spoken with him, we've had a pretty good rapport. But he went so far anti-Trump that now he's got his left-wing buddies hating him, and the right wing doesn't like him either, and Kimmel's out there by himself. Am I wrong?
If out there by yourself means, rich and living
Carolla.
in a mansion. I don't know. There are many people we should be concerned for in this country and abroad more than Jimmy Kimmel. He's the most.
I agree.
He's the most decent man I've ever met in my life. Everyone who meets him knows who he is. He has a very generous heart, and he's a great person. He was doing comedy. He wasn't doing blackface. He was doing Karl Malone and Oprah and Snoop Dogg. That's what comedians do, at least gifted ones. I'm not good enough. Thank God I wasn't good enough to do impersonations back then. Otherwise, there'd be a bunch of footage of me doing the same thing. So Jimmy Fallon, Jimmy Kimmel, these guys they're not part of the problem. That's the whole thing. There are many. You started this with your opening monologue. There are many people that are part of the problem. Jimmy Fallon, Jimmy Kimmel, not part of the problem. Move on, idiots.
Okay, I agree with that, but Colbert is part of the problem. And that's why the other two reacted that way. Because Colbert was nowhere in the ratings, no one watched him until he became a far-left fanatic. And they felt they had to follow. So I want everybody to pick up Carolla's book, I'm Your Emotional Support Animal. It's a very sensitive title. Navigating Our All-Woke, No Joke Culture. All right, Carolla, we'll talk again soon. Get on that. Stand up for your country. Get on that campaign for us out on the West Coast, okay?
Thanks, Bill.
Okay, let's get to some mail here. Lee, a concierge member, and let me explain this. Concierge members for BillO'Reilly.com have direct access to me in private. You send me a private email about anything you want, and I will keep it private, and I will help you out if I can. And if you want more of an explanation of the news or anything like that, you have suggestions, they get right to me every day. That is the value of a concierge membership. All right? But concierge members also participate with everybody else on BillO'Reilly.com, and this is posted on the message board. Cancel culture is fundamentally un-American. Boycotting businesses over trivial issues such as the Goya thing, un-American. Our great republic was founded on an open exchange of ideas and that we the people could discuss differing ideas. The fact that someone else's life can be destroyed for expressing an opinion, un-American. Absolutely right, Lee. Absolutely right. I talk about this Goya thing with Sean Hannity on the radio today. We have it posted, so please check that out. TC, Bill, I bought my first Goya product this morning. I will now use their food in recipes whenever possible. Andrew, the main reason the far left hates Christians is because they understand at some level that we will never allow government, especially with them in charge, to replace and become our God. That's not the main reason, Andrew. The main reason is because Christianity and Marxism are incompatible. In the Christian theology, you must respect private property. There's no wiggle room. Second issue, abortion. The secular far left worships at the altar of reproductive rights. That's why they hate Christians. Brad, Bill, regarding Ocasio-Cortez and unemployment, wasn't she banging the drum to keep Amazon jobs out of New York? Very good point, Brad. So now she's saying that murders are being caused because people don't have enough to eat. She was the cause, almost the sole cause, of Amazon not coming to Queens. Tens of thousands of jobs, working class jobs, were lost because of that. But again, people in her district, they don't know too much. John Bam Barger, Houtzdale, Pennsylvania, with New York City cutting its police and murders and crime up, how will that affect people coming to the city for shopping or plays? They won't come. The plays aren't even going to start until 2021. So that industry's shot. And anybody, I love the city. I was born in the city. I live 20 miles outside the city. Anybody asks me, I say, don't come to the city. Not now. Don't come here. Glenn Rice Creek, Fairfax, Virginia. If Joe Biden gets elected and the economy tanks, wouldn't he just blame it on Trump? Of course. Of course. The economy tanks, and it will. The Democrats are elected. Trump did it. And press will absolutely put that out there, no doubt about it. Bill, thank you for your research on the Black Lives Matter Global Foundation. It's frightening. When are Americans going to wake up? It's Sheila Lunsman, Monticello, Iowa. I'm sorry, Sheila, I should have introduced you. When are Americans going to wake up? Some of them are never going to wake up. The zealots, the ideologues, the fanatics, never. It's who they are. Jenny Lage, Elko, Nevada. I'd like to see the schools open in the fall, but I have a concern. With the liberal push going on right now, our kids are going to be subject to even more intense liberal brainwashing by the teachers and administrators. Well, here's your choice, Jenny, and it's not a great one. Find a traditional private school. I send my kids to private school. They don't have any of that nonsense. Okay? Or move to Poland. Poland, you got a traditional education system. There are a few other countries, not many. But you got to move to Poland. Or go to private school or homeschool. And if homeschool, the socialization factor for teenagers is big. Don't discount that. Suzanne Levinson, Eugene, Oregon. Hey, Bill, I was reading what you said, that lying is now acceptable in our country. you should put the blame squarely where it belongs on Donald Trump. Now, I'm sure you were reading that, Suzanne, on a far-left website that was mocking me, okay? But I will respect your letter and your opinion, because that's the kind of guy I am. If you read my book, The United States of Trump, and the odds of that are probably 1,000,000 to 1, you'll see I explain how Donald Trump is imprecise in his language and doesn't really care about the accuracy of his statements because he's a rich guy. And for his whole life has said whatever he wanted to say, because that's what rich guys do. But there is a difference between bearing false witness against someone or something, which is a lie, and exaggerating or being flamboyant or just casually throwing stuff off that isn't true. There's a bit. Now, I do not believe Mr. Trump is in the business to harm people by using deceit. I could be wrong, but I've known him for more than 30 years. But when you talk about lies, a big difference between bearing false witness and simply not speaking responsibly. Robert Smith, Ashdown, Arkansas. I ordered 10 packages of stickers last week. My wife and I own a small business, and we're giving them away free, telling patrons this: the stickers are free if you prefer liberty and freedom over Marxism. Absolutely right. Thank you, Lieutenant. I know you're a lieutenant. I hope all business owners and everybody does that. Buy our stickers, stand up for your country. Give them out to everybody. Let's make a statement. We don't kneel. I want 1 million of these things out there. We've got a couple of 100,000 now. Go to the store, BillO'Reilly.com, and get them. And I've kept the price down. Anybody can afford them. So the final thought of the day is Holly, the terror dog. That's you. So Holly is demanding, see that? Demanding to be taken on vacation. All right? She's an Instagram star and a Twitter star. Yes, you are. I know you want to lick my face. I'm not letting you lick my face. All right, so Holly's been in hair and makeup all afternoon getting ready for her appearance tonight. Holly, you got to look at the camera. If you're going to be a TV star, you got to look at the camera. You can't be looking at that. So Holly's demanding to go on summer vacation, all right? And I have to take her. I'm going to take her down to the ocean where she can chase seagulls and bark at, I don't know, seals. We have some seals this year. Whatever. Right, Holly? Okay, all right, just another minute. Just another minute. See, this now, corgis are adorable dogs, but this dog sheds. I can't even, that's why I can't wear my jacket. All right? She sheds unbelievable. So we're going to be off tomorrow. I know, Holly, I know. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. We're going to get you a treat after this. We're going to be off tomorrow, but we'll be back on Monday. We'll be checking in all weekend. I want you to have a good one. Say goodbye, Holly. Yes, good dog. And I'll see you soon.